I'm Forrest, known as Bud Lankton. I reside at 1001 Carpenter's Way, apartment J117, Lakeland, Florida, zip 33809.
Okay, what's your phone number?
My phone is area 813-859-5269.
Okay, and this is we'll put a little bit of preamble on there. This is January 8th, 1989, and this is Jim Walkinshaw and Bud Lankton talking. Okay. Now, with that background, Bud, maybe you could start us with where did you start at Oldsmobile and when was that?
Well, it was kind of interesting the way I got introduced to Oldsmobile. I was in the middle of the Depression, I thought, but John DeMeyer, who was my general foreman when I hired in the Olds, walked through my backyard and seen a sheet metal boat that I had handmade. And he come by one day and asked me if I'd like to work at Olds. Well, there wasn't much work in those days in the job shop, so I jumped at it. I went in to apply and I was already hired.
Is that right?
It was kind of interesting when I look back at it now. I just come from an outside job. I was working on the post office. It's a new post office in Lansing, Michigan. That large canopy over the truck dock.
Yeah.
I was installing the copper on the underneath side of that. I was a skilled tinsmith. I could solder that stuff on the ceiling, so to speak.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, anyway, when I went in for this interview, I had my long underwear on. Being a poor man, the knees were patched. I think it was Dr. Gunderson, made some remark.
He was the plant physician?
Yes. Didn't offend me, but he just made some remark. Was I going to a wrestling match or something? But of course, I was hired.
What day was that? What was the date? You remember?
That was January 10, 1934.
1934.
And it was interesting. There had been a layoff, and my brother, which had a few years at Oldsmobile already, they called it Olds Motor Works at that time. He was just coming in, and the employment agency or wherever I was asked him to show me where to go.
Oh my.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
And of course, he took me right to the tin shop.
Where was the tin shop?
In Building 40.
Building 40.
Building 40.
Down on the first floor?
First floor.
All right.
Pretty well to the north end.
Was the floor in Building 40 at that time? Was the whole floor? Was there open space in the middle?
It was open in the middle. That was interesting too. Later on, after that was filled in, I worked in the engineering design office right where that hollow spot was.
Oh yeah. Okay, so you started in January of 1934 in the tin shop?
It's journeyman tinner.
All right.
What happened, the reason they was hiring extra help, they was getting ready to take on the second shift. And they, of course, plant engineering, we always had work to do.
Yeah.
Got right in the middle of ventilation jobs, which I liked. First day, we went right to work on my trade. I mean, I was in clover.
Yeah.
And I had a steady wage, 66 cents an hour.
Is that what you started at?
That's what I started. That was good money for a guy coming out working an hour then, an hour some other time.
Yeah. What kinds of jobs did you work on? What kinds of things? We were working on ventilation, but what was going on?
I can't remember the first jobs, but we done a lot in the motor plant.
All right.
That entire cast iron operation was all ventilated.
Okay. Is that the first time it had ventilation? Was when you were working on it?
I believe so.
All right.
That cast iron dust, the fellow's underwear would turn yellow, and it was pitiful. General Motors spent a lot of money, well, under the safety program, I'll call it.
Yeah.
I also had part in a lot of machine guards. I'm proud of their safety. There's not an open shaft or belt gear. There's nothing open on any machine. I mean, they're protected.
Was that true in 34 when you came, Bud?
It was pretty much, but it's a job. More machinery, more plant grew, and of course our work grew.
Yes.
Seemed like we never was out of something to do with it.
Did we have safety glasses at that time too?
No.
No.
2 or 3 times I broke my glasses, and I'm quite nearsighted, and safety department would take me quick right down to get another pair. And one of the safety men says, "Why don't you get safety glasses?" I said, "Let's do it." I didn't know they had such things.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I bought the first pair myself before they had the program.
I see. All right.
And well, one time a steel cable that I was cutting into flopped. The coil hit me right square in the eye.
Oh, wow.
And another time, the plant was down over in the press plant, that tall building 50. I was walking through there, and there was a rod sticking out from the press just eye level.
Oh, my goodness.
I walked right into that thing. I never seen it. There was sunlight in there, of course, but
Yeah.
it was well lit, nobody working. I was just going through there to measure a job or something about my business. But actually, there was some particles of glass right on my eyeball.
Oh, wow.
I just went back a little ways around the corner to the first aid that was in that north side of the building 50. The medical man in there cleaned the eyeball off. But again, I had a pair of broken glasses. Well, I was happy to get safety glasses. I never could understand these guys that want to fool the boss by punching the glass out of the rib, but
Well, you only get one pair of eyes.
anything for safety, I'm all for it. I kept, sometime later, the carpenter boss, Bill Montgomery, he lost an eye from driving a nail. He was home in his basement. We had safety glasses, but at home he didn't have them on.
He didn't wear it. Isn't that so?
He's been the rest of his life without one eye.
See, who was your boss, Bud, when you started?
Bill Emmons.
Bill Emmons? Okay, he was the foreman.
He was a foreman.
And the general foreman was John DeMeyer?
John DeMeyer.
All right. What, tell me about Emmons and DeMeyer a little bit. What kind of people were they?
They were fine men. Bill Emmons was a very quiet guy. He was no man to pass compliments.
Okay.
But when I stepped up to be the foreman, he said, "Well, we've learned a lot from you, and don't think we're not going to miss you." Not that I had anything to contribute, only my previous experience. Sure. I was in there one day, and someone was a journeyman tinsmith, but he hadn't been in that field before. He was covering a fire door. He was there at Oldsmobile. He was putting the tin on like a tin roof.
Oh, yeah.
Well, for fire doors, you got a special form. Of course, I come from the job shop where we had to make doors that would pass underwriter's inspection. When they did fire doors after that, they were made exactly right.
The right way.
I don't take no credit for it, but we had an old Swede named Hugo Hultberg.
Okay.
He started his trade in Sweden many years ago.
Yeah.
and he wanted to spend 50 years in his trade, and he did. And he came into Olds sometime after I did.
I see.
He was an expert at the fire doors. Bill Evans just had him make them. And
Tell me about John DeMeyer.
I always respected the man. I guess partly because he helped me to get a steady job, but it's kind of interesting. I never noticed it till another tenor called it to my attention. Every time he'd leave his office, he'd step out and get a drink of water before he'd take off down the plant sometimes.
Okay. Must have been a thirsty soul.
Well, I don't know. He was quite a fisherman.
Was he?
So during the winter time, his wife would go scout out some lake around, and if the fish were biting, she'd come back and get some guys, and they'd go there fishing.
Mm-hmm. Ice fishing.
Ice through the ice, yes.
But, Bud, you were in Building 40,
Yes.
and you stayed there. How long did you stay there at 40 down on the first floor?
I'm not sure. We moved at one time over to building 20,
Okay.
and then we moved to 38, second floor,
All right.
and can't think where I was now when I went up to the engineering office. When I come back from there, I guess is when I went over to building 20.
And that was after the war.
Yes. I was up in the office about a year after the war. We put the place back together.
Yeah.
Uh,
Did you stay in doing the tinsmithing job up to the war then?
yes.
And
Well, it was, yes.
when did you move into then you mentioned going into the office type thing. When did you go up there?
I'm not sure of the year. I was up there about 5 years altogether.
Okay.
Joe Newman was the boss when I first went up there.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, he's the one that got me up there.
Okay.
He interviewed me down in the tin shop, and I was feeling inadequate. He just asked me if I'd like to go up there, and I said, well, I have no experience. He said, well, you had high school drafting? Yes. Well, he said, we'd like a closer connection with the tin shop.
Mm-hmm.
So I went up there and I loved it. Got a lot of comments on my work.
Who was up there at that time? Who were the engineering people that were there?
Joe Newman was
Okay.
the assistant, and can't think of the man's name that was a plant engineer.
Was Bill Rasmussen there at that time or
No,
not?
he hadn't hired him yet.
All right.
I was working in the office when Bill came in there.
Uh-huh.
He started right in the engineering office.
Okay, so who was, let's see, I trying to remember who the plant engineer was. Beeman?
Beeman, the older Beeman.
Yeah, not,
Wiley.
yeah, Wiley was over at plant 2, wasn't
yes.
he? Yeah, right. Yeah.
It was interesting at that time. Joe Newman, the plant engineer, the assistant plant engineer, was punching a clock just like the rest of us.
Was that right? All of the people up there were doing that then?
Yes.
Uh-huh. All right.
We quit punching the clock when we went on salary.
All right.
That was about the time that Bill Rasmussen came in there.
Okay. What happened during the war? What were you doing?
I had various activities. I designed ventilation, and a lot of the time I followed the contractors.
Okay.
There was a lot of contract work, and I was kind of the go-between to see that they done their job right. And in fact, I guess I had to okay some of it before they get paid.
Uh-huh.
I've run into one interesting little deal of that, when they built the bumper plating plant.
Mhm.
I don't remember whether I was in engineering then or the boss over there, but someone had me checking it. Some of the foundations, the big footings clear at the bottom of the piers, they didn't have the required construction reinforcing steel in it.
Oh, really? Uh-huh.
I hollered at their, can't remember his name. He was quite a hustler. I said, better put some steel in there before that's poured.
Oh,
He went and got some in a hurry and brought it up to standard.
that was plant 3, must be.
Yes.
Okay. What, you remember what was made where in the plant during the war?
We made shells. We made machine guns.
Okay, where were the shells manufactured? Where did we make those?
Uh, that was in plant 2, I think.
All right.
And building 50 and some of them other buildings there made airplane parts for Pratt and Whitney, England.
Okay, the engine parts that we were making.
Bucket. I mean the big castings for the
Mhm.
steering or landing gear.
All right.
We made tubes. I think it was 75 millimeter, maybe a bigger one.
Those were gun tubes.
Yes.
Mhm.
We made the tubes and the breech block. Seemed like there was some other part.
Okay.
And in plant 3, they made a lot of the jet parts, the
Okay,
blades,
that was
the
during the
rings.
50s, early
Yes.
50s.
I went to plant 3 in 52.
Mm-hmm. You came from the engineering job at that point in time, or had you gone back out in the shop?
I went back out in the shop after engineering, about a year after I was in the design section. We was putting the place back together, so to speak.
Yeah.
At one time when our squad boss was on vacation, I had the responsibility for our squad, and Bill Rasmussen was the field man.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I knew anything. I needed all the help I could get, but I'd contact him in the field, and he'd contact me. And
Yeah.
there was, in each squad, there was a mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, a civil engineer, I guess a draftsman.
Okay. You were assigned an area kind of that you're responsible for.
Just in rows in the design section.
But did your little group have an area in the plant that you owned, kind of like the engine plant or the axle plant?
As I recall it, the most of our work was east end, the motor plant.
Engine plant stuff.
Uh,
Did we keep all that machinery, Bud?
no, that was one of our jobs when they quit using it, is to get that all loaded out
Oh, really?
and get automotive machinery back in.
Okay.
It was a tremendous job.
Where did the automotive machine, was it new automotive machinery or had it been stored somewhere?
I don't know. Some was new, of course, and more up to date, modern. Uh, Even after it was all installed, there was changes continually right on.
See, just before the war, before we got involved in the war, do you remember where the engine assembly line was?
Building 28, I'm sure.
All right.
Uh, Louis Church,
Yeah, was the
superintendent.
Mhm. And then car assembly plant was, did you get out in that end of the woods?
Oh, that was the old building 16
Okay.
and 20. Can't remember the year they built that body lift at the north end.
Mhm.
They used to bring the bodies in from Fisher, and there was an elevator there to take them up the right level.
Okay. See, I
Seen
brought,
we seen a sad case there. One of the construction workers
yeah,
was pouring gasoline into his truck that they was using for a crane,
yeah,
and a spark from someone working back on the building hit right in the funnel. Of course, he was a fire quick. Someone had doused him to put the fire out. When I got there, he was still standing. Someone got a coat around him, but I picked up what was left. His suspenders was burned, but the spring, they used to have a horseshoe-like shaped spring in the rear. I picked one of them up off the ground, and he got so hot that the tension was gone in it.
poor guy.
He lived about 2 or 3 days, I guess. Nowadays, you wouldn't see that. General Motors is
So we don't.
careful with all the.
Did you see other kinds of things like that, Bud, that happened out in the plant in the early days that, where we had an accident, peculiar accident like that?
Can't think of any at the moment.
Okay. Let me ask you.
I seen one guy, a construction worker,
Yeah.
when we was in building 38. He was some contractor. He was up above. He's up on the truss work, and he fell,
Oh, goodness.
and his tailbone, we call it his butt, I guess. He can call it another name. He landed right on the edge of a bench, but he was able to walk away. He come by Bill Evans' desk where I was sitting, and so I got right up to help. He says, "What can I do?" Something nice. Well, I guess he said, "Call his boss." I called somebody to get some help with that. But he was able to walk away, started down the stairway the last I seen him.
I'll be darned. Isn't that something? Lucky, lucky. Yeah, Bud. 1935.
Very interesting. I wouldn't take a toothpick that was of use to anybody, but I have so much of this stuff. Uh,
That's my question to you on this map is, see these, what I call these older buildings down here in the middle? The old 1B,
Yes.
2B, 10, all that sort of stuff? Yeah, this says bumper polish and plating. Is that where the original bumper plating plant was? Then down here next to the smokestack? You remember that in there?
Seemed like we done some work in there, but I can't remember that too good.
All right.
But by that old smokestack, they had a coal hopper, a very tall building that they'd elevate the coal and then let it run out the chute.
Okay.
And one day, the sheet metal blowed off from the top of that, and of course, safety got on that in a hurry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sheets of corrugated coming down.
Flying around. Yeah.
Well, Bill Evans gave me the job because I wasn't scared of height. I used to lay slate on towers when I was in the job shop. He gave me the job of going up there and nailed some of that back on. Well, I just had to reach out around. Well, we accomplished it.
Well,
I guess he insisted there was a tagline tied to me.
I would think so. So you wouldn't fall off.
But later, can't remember. Seemed like I chopped the sheet metal off of that when they tore the building down.
Okay. Were you there when the stack went down?
I seen it. Yes, seen them blow it up.
Did you? What happened? Kaboom, huh? Big lot of dust?
I don't, must have been. I also seen let's see, where's that aisle along, any turn around here?
This way is north. Okay,
That aisle where,
here's building 40 right here.
okay, it was about in here someplace, I think. They had us all out standing along the line when General Douglas MacArthur went by.
Okay, that was in 1953, I think. Does that sound about right?
I'm not sure.
You were standing out along the road, so
Yes.
he drove by, kind of went by. Did you wave at everybody, or what happened?
He saluted.
Uh-huh.
I can't recall. I didn't look to see if he had his pipe. He had his hat on.
Yeah. Did he get out and shake hands with people?
He might have, but not in our area.
Not there. Uh-huh.
He was just an open car,
Yeah.
standing up,
Yeah.
back seat. I admired the man. I don't think I ever had a picture of that. At one time, we couldn't take pictures into the plant,
Yeah.
or cameras into
Yeah.
the plant.
See, it says here, Bud, apprentice school in building 36. And then it says motor storage for all the rest of 36. And it says crankshaft out here in 38.
Okay, when I was there, they didn't have no building 36. We used to park our cars there.
Okay. So when you first came, that was still an open space in there.
Yes. We parked our cars there, and I remember we had one plant security man that somebody griped because we had to walk so far.
Oh, wow.
He says, "All you guys want to park right at your front door."
Uh-huh.
He was a great big round
Yeah,
guy, but
yeah.
he had kind of a sense of humor.
Was the old Reliance Engineering Works building in there when you came or not? Does that ring a bell?
No,
Okay, that apparently had been torn down by then. Right.
uh, from the paint shop there, that row of sewers that run right out to the river.
Yeah, up the middle there, down Division Street. Yeah.
A few times we seen. I didn't see it only once. I seen one cover lift a ways, but I guess some of them blowed out farther.
Or what? What happened?
The
gas?
the vapors out of the paint shop
Oh.
collected in there, and maybe a cigarette in the drain or something. I don't know.
But it just boom.
Well, we had to go down in there, and I don't know if that was the result of it. A couple times the tin shop had to go down in there and put a damper across. It might have been to diverting that flow from the storm sewer.
Okay.
There's two sewers there connected or something. I didn't understand the drainage problem for good.
So you got to crawl around in that big old sewer?
I think I held the air supply and the tag rope for the guy that did go in.
What about I was
going to tell you about that ventilation.
Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead.
One of the jobs that I did was very interesting. There's sheet metal layout was my thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised. I'd never been to college, but the Michigan education gave me a license to teach our layout at night school, which I taught for many years.
Did you?
I quit. I wanted to be the home of the family more. They'd have another teacher, and they coached me back the next year.
Oh, my.
At one time, most of the sheet metal layout men in the Michigan area, not all of them, but the most of them had been through the evening class one time or another.
What time frame would that have been in, on? 40s?
Yes. I think I started in the I started in the 30s.
Okay.
I done a little fill-in for the evening class teacher before I went to Olds even. And because he went west to get work, and I think he went to Seattle.
Okay.
And I went to, I just had the job for several years there. Can't remember when
You did that because you like to do that? Or,
Well-
or because people asked you?
well, some of both. I liked it, and I always got satisfaction out of training apprentices. That's one of the things I put on my record there at Olds one day. I feel like I couldn't spend enough time with them. I had so much responsibility, other things. When I was the boss, I tried to move the apprentices with different first-class journeymen, and it pleased me the way some of them developed. For years, I thought all their step up came from the electrical department. Uh, Benson was electrical engineer. Dakin was electrical engineer. John Dakin.
Yeah.
Ernsberger.
Mm-hmm.
They were all electricians.
Mhm.
I can't think of some of the other names now. I got to telling some of the people around there, they're not big enough for it to do any good.
You were back on.
One apprentice, well, he started me. He went right by me and right on up the ladder. He's now general superintendent.
Who's that?
Uh, Thought I'd never forget his name, but it escaped me for the minute.
Okay. He'll come back.
I've had safety minded, I guess, ever since I got some training at Oldsmobile. Our workshop down here don't quite suit me.
Oh,
Trying to upgrade
Yeah.
that a little bit.
yeah.
I sent to this, Lord help me. I admired a man. I thought I'd never forget him. He sent me some pictures and a lot of information about safety up there that hopefully I can upgrade our shop here. So,
Sure. That's great. That's great.
so far, I can't step on anybody's toes here. In General Motors, if it's for safety, buy it, do it.
That's right. That's right.
Seems like the mentality here, if it costs anything, forget it. One thing I did do that our tool rest right here in our grinder, the wheel was more so that the tool rest, when it was adjusted clear in, we had 5/8 of an inch gap.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't serious, but we had one fellow, his work hogged me down
I
here.
was gonna say, get your finger caught in that in a hurry.
Well, I did get a new grinding wheel. When I first suggested it, the boss here said, well, we'll get somebody to dress the wheel. You can't dress it,
Fix that.
worn out already.
See, Bud, what happened? When did you retire?
I retired in 1969,
All right.
1st of September,
All right.
and I'm so proud. I never missed a payday from the day I walked in till I left.
Isn't that great?
For an uneducated man, you
Yeah.
can't beat that
Oh,
nowhere.
that is great.
When they had their steel strikes and
Yeah. Yeah.
labor pains and all that, I had a salary job.
Mhm.
I'm so proud of Oldsmobile. I don't think it's when people say the big organization don't have a heart. My first wife died. Pitiful death. She had a brain cancer. She was 2 years and dying. Yeah, but I was determined when she left to be a good boy. And I was. And then God gave me another wonderful lady. I've now had her 26 years.
Oh my goodness, that's great. That's
But-
great.
When I went to think Bill Rasmussen was the big boss then.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I told him I was taking off for my honeymoon. My vacation was gone for the year.
Yeah.
It was in December.
Uh-huh.
But they wrote a letter to top management and they paid me anyway.
Oh, good.
And I didn't realize at the time, but when I come to retire, I realized that I'd never missed a payday.
That's excellent. That's excellent. So you mentioned during the labor strikes, those kinds of things. Were you there during the 35 or whatever it was that the union was formed during that period of time?
Yes.
What happened?
I didn't elect to join.
All right.
I think one main reason was a man that I knew from the job shop. We met in the restroom over in the pressed metal someplace where you had to go upstairs.
Yeah.
He had to be in there at the time. I don't know, there's just some brief mention made of the union. He says, "Don't say you want to join or we'll see you." Well, that didn't sound good to me.
Mm-hmm.
And before it was compulsory that you had to, I was salary job, so
Okay.
I never did.
So you didn't have to fight that.
I think the union had their place, but they went overboard.
Yeah.
Like clock pendulum. And I'm sure that everyone recognizes that now. I see by the literature that General Motors and the union are working together. That's when I was the boss, I had the skilled and unskilled
Mm-hmm.
unions both to deal with. I had one skilled worker. He was after a raise. I was not giving it to him just because he asked for it. So I tried to be very fair with my people.
Yeah.
And I didn't know till sometime afterward that the shop committee man told him, he said, "Bud is fair. If you want a raise, go to work."
Yeah. Good. That's
Well,
all right. Did you have guys that were kind of lax and didn't want to work, Bud?
oh yes. The unskilled, the labor class more than the skilled workers.
Was it?
I had a grievance on me once that I was blacksnaking the guys,
Which means what?
driving them to work.
Oh, okay.
It was kind of a simple thing. I was just trying to do the job. The union was complaining about the fumes down in the plating area. That's the bumper plating area in 3. And our job was to clean the vents.
Mm-hmm.
That cyanide would,
Yeah.
it was a nasty, dirty job getting down inside the pits, down underneath there to clean them.
Yeah.
But what happened, the reason the ventilation wasn't working, it wasn't cleaned. And all I did was go down there to see when they took a cover off that it was clean. And somebody thought I was blacksnaking. They called the committee man. Actually, well, they didn't get no place in reprimanding me.
Yeah, right.
It was actually for everybody's benefit to get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't rushing them to work blacksnaking. That was the idea. It was just to do what they was there for.
We had a job to get done.
It was down in, out of the way place. I think some of them, now some of the guys would work right. I mean, we had some good guys.
Yeah.
There was a few that just get down in there and hide, not do anything.
Did you ever have any you had to reprimand because of that?
I was slow on giving reprimands. I tried.
Right.
You had to some to maintain order. I had a window washer at one time. That man could wash more windows than any 3-man. I never seen nothing like it. But you never could find him. You would sign him to a job, and he'd take his truck out there with his equipment.
Yeah.
You go by a little while later, and the windows was all washed, and he was gone.
Isn't that something?
But he could get everything done.
Oh, he was
when I wanted my windows washed, my home, I got him to come do it.
Really?
I paid him, but I mean,
Yeah,
he was, well, I had them Venetian type,
yeah. The blind.
lots of blades.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I got the second one that was installed in Lansing when they were new,
Uh-huh.
but quite a job to wash the things. He was a great worker, but the union told him, we're not going to represent you anymore. But what happened, he'd occasionally get a call from home and I couldn't pass it on to him. Couldn't find
Could
him.
never find it. Uh-huh. Yeah.
I'd leave a note on his truck. I guess he'd eventually call home, but I tried to, I worked with him. I was sorry when he got sick and had to leave.
Yeah.
In fact, he had a cancer problem, but I seen him when he was still living. He wanted me to forgive him for the way I treated him. Thought that was
It's interesting. Well, did you do any work on the building 78 plating plant? The one out there west of the car assembly plant, west of the axle plant.
yes. A lot of them vents went up through the skylight.
Mhm.
I installed a lot of them vent ducts.
Yeah,
Built them out the window.
yeah.
I installed,
That little sawtooth rub.
yes.
Yes.
We done so much of that that not only the bumper area, but farther east of there, I think it was polish area.
Mm-hmm.
They had a
Yeah.
lot of square hoods,
Mm-hmm.
about 6 feet off the floor.
Mm-hmm.
All them ducts went out the skylight.
Mm-hmm.
I done so many of them, but I mean, it was pretty routine. I knew what size to cut the window flashing. I had it. That's kind of interesting too. I used to be like a monkey climbing. Time and again, John DeMeyer would stand down there. I think sometimes he called me to see me come down, but anyway, I'd I'd skid and slide like a monkey and
Yeah.
from the hood down, just jump off.
Slide down, walk down the beams, and uh-huh. Yeah.
I realized I was careless, but when I was in the job shop, I used to on a slate roof, putting copper work on and all that. I used to dangle around on the rope like a monkey just to see what the guys on the ground would think. It's foolish, but I'm not scared to climb anymore, but I don't do the foolish
Yeah,
stuff.
right, right. What went on over at Plant 3 when you were there? We were making bumpers and jet engines. Or we were making those together or not?
I'm not sure. I had a lot of interesting work there besides Tin Shop.
Okay.
Uh, we done a lot of the press foundations. Of course, my carpenters built the forms,
Mhm.
and I'd order the concrete. I kind of amazed the place, figuring quantity of concrete, not condemning guys at main plant. I heard would take a look at a place and order concrete.
Mhm.
Wasn't enough, they'd order more. They got too much, take it away.
Like, what do you do with it then?
Well, I tried to order the right amount. Uh, I actually figured them irregular forms, the capacity, quantity, I figured in inches.
Really?
I
Wow,
done it all with my slide rule.
that's a lot of work.
Simple, just more
A
figures.
lot of figuring though.
We didn't have the calculators they got
Yeah,
nowadays. I figured in inches and then convert it back to feet,
Mhm.
cubic yards,
Yeah.
and it was amazing how I think Bill Rasmussen noticed how accurate I was.
Mhm.
And you can't always hit it right on the nose. I mean, you can't buy concrete and
No.
any less than a half yard. I always tried to have another hole someplace that
Sure.
wasn't urgent, and we just have someplace to use it. A few times when we'd have a little surplus, my building repair guy, well, my tinners made a form for a concrete urn.
Mm-hmm.
He just dumped it in that, and they was selling them out of salvage for
Oh, really?
very cheap. They were nice little flower
Sure.
pot, very heavy.
Yeah. Now at Plant 3, did you have all the guys working for you, Bud? Or
I did on the start, and after they got another foreman in, he took the laborers and janitors,
okay.
and I kept the tinners, carpenters, and painters.
Mm-hmm.
I had them this whole 17 years I was there.
Okay.
And when he'd go on vacation, I'd have to fill in nights. I didn't like that too good, so we were regular. One year he took his vacation, 3 different, on a week, off a week, on a week, off a week. He had the right to take his vacation when he wanted it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a hard thing for me to adjust.
Who was the boss over there over you? Who was your boss?
After Cartwright left,
See, Cartwright was over there initially?
yes,
Okay.
I think then it was Leotis Benson.
Okay.
I admired that man. He was quick on the trigger to tell you what he thought of you, but I mean, he was a technical-minded man. He
Mhm.
kind of amusing. He got a little angry at me one day because I didn't have the foundation for the water storage tank, that big low tank.
Yeah. Outside. Yeah.
We built the foundation, and some bridge company from Chicago was coming in to install it.
Okay.
And he told him when to come, and I done my best with what labor I had, but I couldn't get the foundation done.
Oh, really?
He had to
Oh, no.
call Chicago, postpone the
Go
installation.
slow. He probably wouldn't like that.
He didn't like that very good, but the interesting thing, I had a raise coming, and he come right out to that job to tell me about it. He must have okayed it before it went
Probably.
to management.
Yeah.
He made some remark about, I'm surprised that it's that much. When it come to evaluating his man, though, he gave me a good report.
Did he?
I had another funny experience sometime after that when he was gone. Man that took his place,
Who was that?
Dar Uren.
Oh, yeah. I remember him.
My first report from him, I shouldn't have been so crude to my boss, but he come out with that report. I think his idea was that if you advanced, that was feathering his cap. I don't know. Anyway,
Might be.
that first report I got, I wouldn't sign it.
Mhm.
He come out sometime later and said, you haven't signed that report. Says, why don't you sign it? I says, well, I won't sign that. He says, you got to. I says, I don't got to. I said, you can lay that right in the bottom of Grand River. Well, after a while, he come back again and said, well, you write it.
Oh, you write the report?
Yeah, I says, well, a school kid don't tell the teacher what his report card will be.
Grade himself.
So after a while, he come back with one that was some better to get him off the hook.
Mhm.
They was pressing him from upstairs to get.
Yeah, well, they do. Yeah.
They was pressing him to get it done, so I signed it. But when it went on up the ladder, it pleased me no end. Bill Rasmussen knew me. He made the notation on there that that was Dar's first evaluation. Well,
You had to learn how to do it.
well, he come out of the tool room.
Yeah.
He might have been the most expert in the world measuring in tenths of thousands. I could have really put him back one day. I wouldn't do it. He'd come out there all in a hurry. He had a roll of print in his hand. But come to me right now. I didn't mind that. We got out there. He rolled the print out. Right here, start digging. I said, is this where you want it? Why, sure. He looked at the columns. Yeah. He didn't recognize the difference between the bay column and the supplemental column.
So it was all off.
He'd have been a half a bay off if I'd have dug it there. Yeah. Well, crazy me if I'd have dug it there and had to move it.
Yeah. You know who would be wrong?
Well, I would take a chance. I showed it to him, dug it where it should have been. There was a lot of pressure in that. I mean, I left Olds with a good report, but they wanted me to stay on. But did they? I had my idea that when I was 60, I was gone. I admired my grandfather, retired at 60. And I had it for years in my mind. I was going to go at 60.
Yeah.
And I did. But there was a lot of stress. Seemed like the more I was there, the more they piled on me. I used to tell Red Jones.
Yeah. He was the boss over there at Plant 3.
He was our general foreman at Plant 3.
Yeah.
I used to tell him, well, when the other guy go on vacation, I had his work in mind. I said, Red, one guy can't do what you're asking of me. Oh, he says you're doing fine. I'll come down and help you with the time slips. We had to make them crazy little yellow tickets for every job, for every man.
To divide up the hours.
And I think it's so ridiculous. Why can't we just put down the number and the amount of hours to it instead of each labor? Every one of them job tickets had to be signed. That was interesting too. When I was with Bill Emmons, I was the leader over there for several years. I'd write E.W. Emmons Bud. E.W. Emmons Bud.
But yeah.
And got away with that for a long time. And I think it was there. I got to leaving the E.W. Emmons all, just writing Bud. Maybe that was after I got over to Plant 3 though. On my own. I just write Bud. And one day somebody up in the office, which I didn't know at the time, but it turned out later she was my wife's niece. I didn't know it. She's now in Tennessee. Somebody called up there and they didn't know who Bud was. They had to find out to call me.
Isn't that something?
They didn't know Bud was Bud Lankton.
After all those years?
Well, my official name, like IRS knows it. Nobody called me that but my mother.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law, they're both gone. Well, anyway, I think it was Benson called me on that. Said, you got a name, why don't you use it? Well, I did for a while, but I'd have maybe, I never counted them, maybe 60, 70.
Yeah, that's a lot of paper.
It's a lot of paper. And I went back to Bud and it was never questioned again. Had to be some signature on there to make it.
People used to put initials down even. Didn't even sign names.
I don't know whether they ever got called on that or not. I don't.
Yeah.
That
Then you retired, Bud, from Plant 3, so you left.
yes.
And now Red Jones was your immediate boss there for a while?
Yes. When I got word that he was retiring, we were down here. We went back to his party.
Did you?
I liked that guy. He was one man that could think. I mean, some of them get position, but you wonder about their ability.
Yeah.
That Red Jones was, I mean, he had it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm afraid that Plant 3 engineering department would never have progressed like it did without him.
Uh-huh.
I mean, in any, see, he was over so many other departments, but
He had the whole thing.
Scheduling the big moves, I mean, he was right there.
Did he do most of that work? The scheduling and all that stuff? How did he have you fit into that? Did he tell you when to do things?
Yes. That was a part that I didn't like when I was in the engineering office, what they call the critical path planning.
Yes.
That got, you had to stick your neck out to guaranteed facts so much. I mean, it's a job in itself, just learning
Sure.
how to schedule it.
Yeah.
I can see the reason for it. With a tight schedule, so many people involved. When you got a guarantee to have a form done today and concrete poured tomorrow and install the machine 3 days later, it's pressure that they wanted me to stay on. I retired at 60. I could have stayed 5 more years, but I had enough. When I go on these overseas construction jobs now,
Yeah.
I don't even look at the prints.
What do you do?
Just go and work with the boys.
Because they know what they're doing.
Well,
Cover this a little bit to keep it in the shade.
oh, shall we go in?
No. Just want to keep the sun up.
I've had a marvelous life since I retired.
Well, that's excellent.
I've done 18 construction jobs, volunteer construction jobs in other countries.
Is that right?
Some people think I'm too old to work. I don't. I'm
You're
just
never too
approaching
old.
80. But I'm going the 21st of this month, I'm going with a medical team
Okay.
to Jamaica.
All right. To do what? More building?
No, this will be ministering to their physical needs.
All right.
I don't know what me, a not medical person will do, but they say they can use some of us. And it's all doctors and nurses
Yeah.
that go to poverty areas and set up shop. And
What do you do with Mama?
she'll stay here this
She
time.
stays here?
She's went with me on 9 construction jobs. She's a fabulous girl. Our first job was in Brazil. We was there 4 months. She broke her arm. We brought her home in a hurry, got treatment here, but it didn't discourage her. The next year she was in Guatemala with me.
Oh my goodness. That's great.
I like to travel, but world travel, everything is set up for the tourists.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
I've seen a lot of that. But
Yeah.
you go the missionary route, you're right with the people.
Yes.
When you build a church for a poverty people, it wouldn't have one unless you help them.
Yeah.
It's rewarding.
It's still.
I get excited just talking about it at the table. I forget to eat.
Bud, what do you think over those years that you spent at the plant was maybe the most important thing that happened?
Well, the steadfastness of being always at it done something in my life. I mean, I was 7 minutes late once in the 36 years I worked there, but a steady paycheck. I never made big money in the eyes of well-trained people in other fields, but it was regular. It was
right.
there.
Yes, that's right.
And
Who was the best boss you had?
well, I had several good ones. I don't know who I could say was the boss.
Okay.
John Dakin probably, when I was on the field in the engineering area,
Yeah.
he probably helped me more than anyone. I had more contact with him.
Okay.
On a big job with the contractors one Sunday out the plant too. Each one wanted to do their thing and wanted to tie up the crane, and the other one couldn't work with the crane going, and too big for me. I just called John Dakin. He's a great man.
See, what time did you spend at plant 2 then? Was that just off and on?
That was just by assignment. We
All
go
right.
there for
a specific task?
Yes.
Okay. What kinds of things? Do you remember what was going on over there when you were there?
Well, one thing, they was converting from gas to oil on their furnaces,
Okay.
and there was a lot of large heat treat furnaces installed.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
I can't remember all the details, but one large furnace there cost $87,000, which in them days
Yeah.
was a lot
A
of
lot of
money.
money, right?
Contractors did it, but I was more or less seeing that they got it done and out of there, I guess. And
Yeah.
not that I could give them orders, but I was the go-between
Sure.
between the contractors and the office. I'd go back every night. I'd go back to the office, every night, get new orders for the next day and what have you about what I'd done. And
Yeah. Yeah. What about the union relations, Bud? How were those over the years?
I had good relations with them. Just, you see, so many times on overtime, if the boss didn't call the union guy in, you'd get a reprimand.
Mhm.
And in our nature of our work, so many times, it happened time and time again, so often. And one time only did I forget. The guys was all gone, signed to work the next day, and I was ashamed of it, but just so much activity piled all into once that, well, I called him up at home, and his name was Shorty Roberts. He was up in the press plant.
Mhm.
He says, "Forget it, Bud. You'll never hear no more about it."
Mhm.
He could have demanded his day's wages.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd have got a reprimand.
Yeah. What would a typical day have been like in on your job? What would you do when you Bud Lankton of Lakeland, Florida, made on January 8th, 1989 by Jim Walkinshaw. This is tape number 2 of 2 tapes. Okay, Bud, start with a typical day.
Well, while I was the foreman, uh, I would come in. I'd always get there early. Once in a while, I do a little the necessary paperwork. Generally, I'd read the newspaper a little while and put it away. I always save the editorial sheet for noon.
Okay.
I carried a sack lunch for convenience. I'd read the editorial, eat my sack lunch, and then my head right over on my desk. I'd sleep for 15 minutes till the whistle blew, unless I got a telephone call or something. That was usual. As far as the activities, just quick as the whistle blew, the phone would start ringing. Seemed like the hospital or the cafeteria or superintendents and foremen all over the place wanted something done. And my guys had to be assigned work, all the different trades. Some guys would wait till you told them to go back where they were yesterday. And it was,
So the first part of the day was spent getting people out to work.
trying to get them to work, and we'd,
How did you prioritize the jobs you were going to do?
well, it's kind of silly, but I used to say, give the hospital direct assistance because you might get sick, and give the cafeteria good service, you might get hungry.
Okay.
So I had I had the janitors up there, and I had, and many times they'd want a little sheet metal or wood job, some little thing. After the, well, I mean, it wasn't direct priority always, but made some difference who called. I tried to come down the line. If Big Boss called, well, he's top dog. Superintendent called, I'd get to his request if I could before the foreman. I kind of tried to judge the importance of what I was doing, not to brush him off. I tried to be honest with him. If it wasn't a real urgent, I'd say, well, I'll be up there later in the day, or and hope you don't forget it. I used to write myself a lot of notes.
How did you handle the jobs that were like construction jobs or those kinds of things that you had to work in?
Well, I referred to it many times as the crazy house. I mean, the real crazy house. At one time, I can't tell you the year, there was a lot of people that would have been laid off, and we had full schedule getting things done, and they just put more people in the department. That was,
But people that didn't know anything?
they just come in. It was bedlam. I mean, I think at that period of one short season, I had 70 people.
Wow.
And at that time, we could have leaders. I had a tin shop leader and a labor leader, and that helped a lot. But it got so, well, ultimately they wouldn't have leaders. They were foremen or out.
Yeah.
And, but at that time it was kind of amusing. One day I realized I was trying to think three ways to once. I had the boss on the phone. I didn't know what he was talking about. I was signing these job tickets, just writing blood on them, but I still had to be conscious of the number was right.
Right.
And one of my guys looking through the window, he got his assignment. He wanted to know if I wanted him to go down there to work. I just nodded my head to him, yes. Well, then I got to laughing at myself. This is crazy, trying to think three ways to once. We get through it.
And then the end of the day was spent with paperwork? Generally?
Very seldom could I ever get out of there when the whistle blew. I mean, I always had some of them job tickets to do, or maybe some orders to write, or instructions for the other shift. It was, I'm not complaining, but I believe on the yearly average, I spent 9 hours or more a day instead of 8. When I had the responsibility of the snow, they'd call me up all hours of the night. What happened? The night foreman, we got this, just a very small snowfall, he'd do it. But I don't know whether he was scared or what. But if we got 3 or 4 inches or anything more, they'd call Bug. Plant Protection called me. Generally, it wasn't him. I don't know. Was put up deal or what. But all I get out of bed 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Anytime there's snow, I'd get up, go down there. All I had to do was go to the telephone, call in some laborers, and it tickled my Rosie. She'd get me a quick bite before I'd go in. I'd go in there, and after I'd assign and tell them where to go and what to do. We had to get all the paths and the doors, get everything cleaned out, get the snowplow going, the trucks, all that. I did nothing to do then. I'd go up to the cafeteria and eat again. Of course, them hours when I was called in, I was paid for it. It was just this when I was stuck that I worked because I couldn't work fast enough to get it all within the 8.
See, was it 67 that we had that big 24-inch dump? Were you there when we had one of those big 24-inch snowfalls or 20-inch snowfalls?
I sure was. I don't remember the date, but the snow was just about to my hips getting out of my house. I got out into the street and I got up to Logan Street, and there was very little traffic there. I started walking, and a couple of policemen picked me up, and they took me, I think, clear to Saginaw Street.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I got out to the plant. It was payday. I remember it was a Friday.
Yep, I remember.
And I didn't have a man to pay. There wasn't one of my guys could get in.
Really?
We had a night shift then. I was responsible for the snow.
Yeah.
But my skill trades wasn't one of them got in.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember these snowmobiles were just new at the time. And from the main office, somebody on a snowmobile brought the checks out to Plant 3.
That's awesome.
That was an interesting thing too. When I first got there at Olds, 1934, Mr. Miller,
Yeah.
he personally went right out the plant with all the checks and paid everyone.
Was he the paymaster?
The paymaster.
You call the paymaster?
Yes.
He paid everybody, handed everybody their check?
Paid everybody their check.
Gosh, how did he get around the plant to all those people?
Well, I don't know what the employment was in 34, but for how long he did that.
Yeah.
My first paycheck come right from Mr. Miller. How he could remember my name and where I was. My brother, when he let me in there, told me that Mr. Miller would do that.
Isn't that interesting? Those were all hand signed, probably, weren't they? Checks.
I never noticed. Paychecks is another interesting thing. When they come around to sign us up for Social Security,
Yeah.
I told Bill Emmons, I don't want no part of it. He said, this is a government thing, you gotta sign it.
No choice.
No choice. So I signed it. The first check with the deduction, I took my check and I went all around the tin shop. I don't know how many there were at that time, but I showed every man. I said, look, this is money down the drain. We'll never see it again. How wrong I was. I started drawing at 62.
And you got it all back 3 years or something.
I do. I'm sure I got back many times more than I put in.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely wrong when these news articles come out periodically up once a year or so, telling us that they're going to run out of money. It makes a lot of people, older people, nervous.
That's right. Yeah, sure does.
I never worried about it. I know there's been a lot of concern over it. Well, God has been so good to me. When I went to get my retirement check, sign up for retirement, I'll say, I was a little disappointed at the moment at the amount. I thought it would be more, but here it is nearly 20 years later, and I've never missed a meal. Good old General Motors, they give you a $2.20 raise because Medicare is going up. Just currently right now.
That's great.
I'm all gung ho for Oldsmobile.
That's great.
I used to be considered a quiet man. Now I talk all the time. You talk Oldsmobile or missions, you've got that conversation.
Can you think of other things, Bud, that might have happened during your stay that would perhaps be of some interest to folks?
Well, my father worked there long enough. He had his 25-year ring. My brother got the 5 diamonds, same as I did.
Yes. That was in the rings.
Yes.
Yeah. No.
And Crazy me, I got the watch too.
Okay.
I think we had our choice. The other two diamonds or the
Or a
watch.
I think that's true.
And I took the watch and paid for the diamonds. Uh, my father's ring, my mother offered it to me, and I said, I don't want it. I got one of my own. And I think my brother's got it. That'll probably be passed down. See, I have no heirs that are named Lankton.
I say,
And his son is named David Lankton.
okay.
100 years after my grandfather that I admired so much was David Lankton.
Okay. But there's a Lankton that can
There's a
carry on.
Lankton. I gave him some of my memorabilia from the Lankton area.
Yeah.
My kids like that stuff. I had to get rid of so much, but Lankton, I had a wood handkerchief box. It was made in the old homestead, the old Lankton homestead. It had flower in the lid, carved, beautiful thing.
Oh, yes. Well,
I gave that to my brother. It was engraved on the, well, it's just a wood pencil, but the Lankton's name that made it and the year that he made it. Originally, that was out by Olivet someplace, the Homestead Farm. My dad's uncle, never married. He stayed on the farm, and it's a big maple syrup place. They had a lot of wood machinery there.
Yeah.
They made furniture there, made their own quality stuff. I gave that handkerchief box to my brother.
Yep.
I'm sure that'll go into the Lankton line.
So you must have had to hand out a few of those rings during your stay there too, didn't you? To
I don't remember
to
of
people
any.
that worked for you.
I don't remember of any 5 diamond. I gave out some 1 diamond.
Yeah, the 25-year ones. Yeah.
When I retired, the South, I mean the labor boys, my crew there that worked for me, they had a little get together for me right there in the lobby of the main lobby right there at the hospital.
In Plant 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then the salary bunch, they had a nice party for us uptown. Dar made the remark that that was a first for Oldsmobile, the men bringing their wives.
Oh, is that right?
Uh,
Oh, that's interesting.
Of course, we were non-alcoholic, most of them retirement parties,
Yeah, right.
past the moves.
Yeah, right.
Someone made the remark that night, this is like a Sunday school party. Everybody was so nice.
That's all right. Way to have it.
Oldsmobile always respected me. I didn't think it was my duty to run around preaching to everybody. I tried to live by example, the right life, and Oldsmobile respected it.
Was there any, what I'll call alcohol problems during that time with the people in the plant? Did you run across that at all?
Yes. I had one laborer. He was a nice guy and a good worker,
Yeah.
but he had an alcohol problem. He came in there so drunk one day that he couldn't find his ears to hang his safety glasses on. He was laying down in the welding booth beside it or something, and his sons brought him to work. They should have just taken him home. I got him into first aid to see if they could help him. I didn't want to make any trouble for the guy, but, well, to be fair to the job, I had to send him home.
Sure.
And I don't know whether that was the first occasion or not, but eventually he was fired. And Benson, knowing my religious outlook, he had compassion for the guy. He wanted my wife and I to go out and talk to him.
To try and get him out of it.
And we did. Oldsmobile hired him back, and the last time I seen him, he was so happy. He says, "Look, bud, I've got a new car and it's paid for."
And he got over it. He got out of it.
Uh,
That's great. That was before we had alcohol programs.
yes,
Where we
yes.
sent people off, tried to get us rehabilitated.
I admire Jim Richards.
Mm-hmm.
He was into that a lot.
Yes. Yes.
When I first knew Jim Richards, he was our office boy there in Plant 3.
So was he? Uh-huh.
I admired the man. When I told him I was coming to Florida to stay, and I'd like to come in and check with him to see that I had all the latest information on Oldsmobile.
Yeah.
And God bless him, he said, "Bring Rosie with you."
Oh, great.
And we went over that new location on
Waverly Road?
Waverly.
Yes.
And I took all that I had, what stuff I had, and he called the insurance man in, and he was checking through that. He pulled out a piece. He said, "Where'd you get this?" I said, "I don't know. It's in my pile of junk." He said, "Are you getting your retirement pay?" I said, "I sure am." He said, "This should have been turned in when you retired."
Oh, no. 20 years ago.
Well, it was only about 18 then,
Yeah.
but that Jim Richards, though, he was very efficient. He got me the latest information at that time. I've been kind of confused since we get all this paperwork.
Oh, yeah.
When I lived right there, it was no problem.
Right.
I just called over there, and for a long time, I just called the insurance office or salary
Yeah.
payroll.
Yeah.
"This is Bud." "Well, hello, Bud. How are you?"
Yeah.
Now I don't know
Now
anyone.
yeah, everybody's gone.
Everybody's gone.
Yeah. Sure.
Most of these farmers that I admired are gone.
Yes. There's very few people that you would recognize back at the plant still working, I suspect.
I've had some thoughts I'd like to go back when my 20 years is up, just for an interview, what I think of Oldsmobile.
Mhm.
Go in and see some of the boys.
See, did you join there's an organization of retired folks that you might want to consider. Yeah, the GM retirees. Yeah, that's
I'm gonna send it in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That bunch, they had a very nice meeting last summer, had everybody together down at the Clarion Inn in Lansing. I think we must have had 300 or 400 people there.
Good.
Good bunch, and I think it appears to be a good organization. So
I'm planning on sending my membership
Yeah,
in when I
good.
go up long enough.
yeah, I don't think there's any big rush, but
Well,
it's just a
I
thing
wanna
that you
get
ought to
in it.
consider because it's a good, looks like a good group. And I'm not here to sell it, but it just looked like it was going to do all right.
Well, Jim Richards is the only guy I know. He's what, second in command up
Yeah,
there or something.
Yeah, Bob Perrin and Jack McGinn and Buzz Bauer and Bud Borkman. Probably remember Bud Borkman? No, he was at Plant 3, maybe after you. Well, anyhow, those are the guys I remember that were sort of organizing it. So
Oh, that reminds me of another interesting thing. After my first wife died, just for something to do, I took that Dale Carnegie course,
oh yeah,
and I guess I needed it. I was always kind of backward about speaking, but the first night we was in there, some guy told a dirty joke, and of course everybody was applauding.
yeah.
He got the prize. But the next night, my speech was we just had started the Rockets,
Okay.
and my speech was the guys going by the time clock when the whistle blew, and I was surprised when they tapped me on the shoulder. I got that Dale Carnegie pencil for the
Oh,
best.
did you?
I still got it. I don't know what I'll ever do with it.
Neat. That's great. Yeah, we did a lot of that, didn't we? A lot of folks went through that program.
Well, I appreciated it. It done me a lot of good. I mean, I've never led a meeting in my life, but when anyone public service calls on me for prayer, I feel like crawling under the bench.
Uh-huh.
But get up and speak. Of course, I did when I was teaching class, but
Sure, had to.
I knew my subject.
Yeah.
I was surprised that the Board of Education trusted me. They just turned me loose. When they'd get another teacher in, he had to make a chart of what he was going to teach, and they'd come in to check to see that he was teaching that. They never checked me once. Of course, I started my sheet metal layout when I was a kid in high school yet. I had that vocational course.
Sure.
We go to school a week, and then we go to shop and work a week. And I was the only guy in our class, drafting class, that was my long subject, 2 hours a day. I was the only guy in there that took sheet metal. And old D.W. Bradford, our teacher, is an old engineer from the Panama Canal.
Oh my.
And he knew that surface development.
Yeah.
And he taught me that. And of course, when I left school, they knew my background. That's probably why I was back there teaching it. But Pancost.
Hugh Pancost? Oh, that's another one.
What was his name? Morris Pancost. He was a very nice man. He was our industrial or vocational principal, I guess you call him. We also had him for physics. And he's the one that got me teaching night school in there. But every year, with my no formal education, I had to renew it every year, and they never failed to give it to me.
That's great, bud. Well, anything else you can think of that would be worth sharing on Oldsmobile that you would like to share with us?
Well, can't think of it at the moment.
I think you did a great job chatting with us. I want to thank you, and I'm sure Helen would too, for taking the time with us to do this, because it's well, it takes some effort to make it happen, and we're glad you did. So,
well, I feel honored that you would spend the time to come this far from home to see me.
That's all right. I've got, let's see, just a couple other things I want to do. I'm going to ask you to sign a release, which allows us to use the tape other than just you and me. And then I want to get your picture here someplace before I get out of here, so that I've got that to go with the boys. So those two things I've got to do, and I'll shut this thing off. Have you ever heard your